Jackie hello everyone, my name is Jackie Eagle.
I'm Gentry Riet-Kerk.
And we are two of your student service coordinators. Yes. Here in NASC. And today we are going to be telling you about and showing you how to make cornhusk dolls. These are Cherokee Cornhusk dolls. While it is something that is used in many different tribes across the United States, the ones we're making today are specifically Cherokee. So what you will need in order to make a cornhusk dolls are corn husks. You can find these at your local grocery store, Hispanics food stores, any of those, also online. You'll need approximately 5 to 7 good corn husks. So when you get them, you might have to pick through them, make sure they're not moldy, because sometimes they're really dirty like that. So you're going to take those and you're going to stick them into a bowl of water, preferably lukewarm, just because they'll get softer faster. The other materials you're going to need are 1-inch foam balls, which are also optional, some yarn for tying, scissors, and then of course your corn husks and your bowl of water. So to start off your corn husk doll, you're going to want to grab 2 corn husks. Oh, and you'll also need paper towels. Those are good to have around. So you're going to take your 2 corn husks and you're going to bunch them together so they're like 2 sticks. And then you're going to put them together into one bundle. And then you're going to take a small piece of yarn and tie around the top. I would say probably 1.5 inches to 2 inches down. And then you'll go ahead and tie a knot there. Double knot, you want to make sure it's really secure. And then if you have any ends on your strings, extra long ties, feel free to go ahead and trim those as well. And so you should end up with something that looks kind of like this. So the next step will be to make the head of your doll. So this is where the foam balls come in. And there's 2 ways that you can do this. A lot of times people will use these 1.5 inch to 2 inch styrofoam balls. And how you do that is you're going to take your 2 pieces of corn husk here, the big ends of it, and you're going to fold it over and kind of spread out the corn husks so they'll fold down and be kind of flat over that top part, that 2 inches you tied off at the top. Now, traditionally, what we would do here is instead of using a styrofoam ball, we would just fold them over and then tie a string around them about here to make the heads. But you know, with today's technology, things have changed. So you can take your styrofoam ball and you just kind of put it up against the corn husks here, those 2 inches you did, and then you're gonna just fold your corn husk over that. Yeah. And so then with that, you can see there's kind of gaps from the styrofoam. So to fix that, all you do is take your corn husks and kind of spread them out to make them wider.
Did you do that on both sides?
Yeah. Yeah, and you'll do that with both corn husks to make sure to get that styrofoam ball covered in there. A lot of times people like to use these nowadays because it gives a very uniform round head. So once you get that styrofoam ball in there, kind of like that, you're going to take another piece of yarn and tie it off right underneath the styrofoam ball. Again, this will be another double knot that you don't want to come out. So growing up my whole life, I was taught a very specific story that went to with our Cornhusk stalls. In Cherokee culture, oftentimes we have a story. We teach lessons, especially when it comes to children. Rather than just punishing them, we like to tell them stories and teach them and help them understand why what they did was not okay. So for Cornhusk stalls, the story I was taught was that long ago, Selu, who was our mother corn, she decided she wanted to do something for the people, for the Cherokee people whom she loved, and she wanted to help them. And so she spoke with Creator, and together they decided to make Cornhusk Woman. And she was very gorgeous. She had a beautiful hair, beautiful face, and she was given to the Cherokee people to help however they needed. She would go from village to village, helping with various things, oftentimes taking care of kids or helping with chores around the village. And then she would wander on to the next one where she was needed. Until one day while she was wandering, she came across a pond. And in this pond, she noticed her reflection. And she stepped there. And she began to stay longer and longer every time she would see a pond. She would sit there and she would look at herself longer and longer, and then she would go to the next village until eventually she sat by the water and continued to stare at herself without leaving. And she did this quite often. And so one day while she was staring at herself, Unethluna had noticed, and he came down and he said, "You have not been doing your job. You're not doing what you were here to do. You're not helping the Cherokee people. All you do is sit here and stare at yourself." He said, "I'll give you a chance. You need to leave here and you need to go back to your people and go back to your purpose. And if you don't, I'll have to punish you." And so she did. She went back to the village. She went on for a time. But again, she kept coming back to the water to stare at herself. And so finally, when this became too much of a problem, Unethluna came down to her and he said, "No, I told you that this is not what you're supposed to be, not what you're supposed to be doing. You're neglecting your job and the people who need you." He said, "Because of that, as your punishment, I'm going to take your face." And so he did. He took the face of this beautiful corn woman. And while she was mortified, it is a reminder to us today in our Cornhusk stalls that we should not let our vanity get in the way. That, we are here to do things, and focusing on ourselves and paying attention to ourselves only is not the way that we as Cherokee people are. And so to this day, we still make Cornhusk stalls without faces. They have hair, clothes sometimes even, but never a face. And so the next step of your Cornhusk stall is going to be to make the arms. So what you're going to do is you're going to get a corn husks. You can get smaller, larger, really whatever size you'd like. Sometimes smaller corn husks come in handy for this. But what you're going to do is you're going to cut off this top triangle part to make it into one long rectangle. Like so. And then when you do that, you're going to start to roll it into, I guess a scroll-like thing. You're just going to roll it up. Your arms can be as thick as you want them to. If they're a little too thick, which I think mine are, you can tear off part of the corn husk and just toss it to the side for disposal. So we'll go ahead and roll up the arms. And you want to make sure you cut them long enough this way that it fits on either side of your doll. So roll it up. Another thing you can do is take pipe cleaners and roll the corn husk around those. That'll allow for your doll to be posable. You can move arms and things like that. And so once you get that, you're going to take some small ties and you're going to tie them at either end, or at both ends, not either end. And here, again, you can trim your ties, you can not trim your ties. This part will be showing, so it's really up to you and how you want your Cornhusk doll to look. And then when tying the arms, you want to try and pull it as tight as you can, because when you do that, it sort of gives you this little hand looking end. And so that's going to be the hand of our Cornhusk doll. And so you go ahead and do that to both sides. And I've always really enjoyed Cornhusk dolls. While they're not something I make often, they are beautiful. And like I said, now people are starting to put clothes on them. We've always kind of put hair on them. And they're just some very gorgeous dolls you can see. Modern artists are starting to make their name in that world too. And, you know, bringing those modern art techniques and merging them with our traditional. And that's really, really cool. So we'll go ahead and trim off our ties here. Like I said, if you want to leave them, you can. I don't know, some kind of jewelry design. But I don't, and that's just me. So once you get them rolled up and tied off, you should have this little long looking thing with a string at either end. You're going to take this piece. You're going to get your first piece with your ball in your head. This is your head piece. And then you'll find where those two Cornhusk dolls separate. Go ahead and pull them apart. And then you'll stick your arms right up in between them, all the way to the top, like so. Once you get them stuck in there, go ahead and take another piece of yarn and tie it off right underneath the arms here, right here. Trying to think. I think I still have the very first Cornhusk doll I made. It's kind of funky looking. It doesn't sit right, but her head's a little weird too, but I got her. And then with this one, you also want to tie it really tight to try and pull it in. It'll create what looks kind of like a waist under your arms. So all of these ties really, after the first one, you want to try and pull them as tight as you can before you knot them, just to get that shape of what a doll would look like. Okay. So once we get that part done, we have these really cute mini dolls. So that's something you could do if you don't want to make a full-size doll. I would recommend a smaller styrofoam ball in that case, or maybe a natural way. But you could essentially stop there if you wanted. We are not, but you could. That's okay. A lot of times they'll get like triangle pieces of fabric and put over their heads as like a bandana type look. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get some strips of corn husk. You can either use some of your pieces from earlier or a new corn husk. We have plenty, so I'm probably gonna use a new one. And then you just want to pull off a thin strip, probably about this big, maybe a little thinner, depending on the look you're going for. But we're gonna get 2 of these. You want them sort of the same size. You can also cut them shorter to better match your doll, as well as get away extra material that you don't need and is in the way. And these are going to become shoulder pieces, sort of like what would look like an apron or a cross of a dress. We will put them diagonally over each shoulder. So the first piece, you'll come in the front here, wrap it around the opposite shoulder, and then around the back. The second, and then you're gonna hold it there. And then the second piece will do the same thing on the opposite side. So here, opposite shoulder, around the back. And then with these, you'll go ahead and make another tie, probably in the same place you put it with your arms, but it'll be to hold these pieces together. If you're really good at holding things and tying things at the same time, you could make this step part of the arms. When you put the arms in, you can fold these over and then tie them with one rather than two. Or you could also go to the next step and then tie them all together as one. But just for ease of holding it, we're gonna go ahead and put another tie. Okay. And so that takes care of the shoulder pieces. You can go ahead and trim these extra corn husks if you'd like, but you don't have to because we're getting ready to cover them up. So that is completely up to you. I'm going to trim mine just a little, make it easier. So this is where we are. We've got our head, our arms, and the shoulder pieces of our dress. So the next is going to be the bottom part of our dress. And this is essentially the last step, besides minor trimming and things like that. So for this, what you want to do, so you're gonna get 3 to 6 corn husks, and before you put them on your doll, you want to go ahead and cut off the very tops. This will make it easier to wrap around the doll, as well as give you a straight line there at the top of the dress. And then on the length, you can make them as long as short as you want. All just kind of depends on how tall you want your doll to stand. You can do anywhere from 3 to 6, depending on how full you want the skirt to be. You could probably do more if you wanted. It changes the way it looks, like the dress, and that's really all it's about. Is you know, your style and what you like. This is really where you get to, I guess, customize it. I'm gonna do 5 of them because that's what's in my bucket. So once you get those trimmed, you're gonna take your doll and you're gonna start wrapping the Cornhusk skirts around her waist. So you've got your headpiece here, and then you're just gonna take this piece and you're gonna start wrapping it around like it's a skirt. I like to get the skirt pieces high enough that it covers the tie. They're under the arms, but that's not mandatory. It's optional. You could also use different color yarns, things like that, to do like a belt. You could probably even do small finger weaves or things like that for like a belt or clothes. Definitely keep paper towels handy if you're going to be doing this inside. There is a lot of water that drips. I prefer to do them outside. I really like going to the river, the creek, or just getting a bucket of water and sitting in my garden or in my yard and doing these different crafts. Traditionally, I think the skirts were usually made about the same length, so it looks very uniform. However, you can cut the corn husks and things to different lengths to give it a layered effect, or anything like that. Really, it's how you want to do it. This is the time to personalize it and really make it your doll. And if you want a fuller skirt, just don't wrap as tightly around the body, or you can add more corn husks. I don't know if I mentioned it in the beginning, but always make sure to keep your corn husks wet and in water. If you don't, they'll be very dry and brittle, and they won't be easy to work with. So it's something that you have to keep soaked in order to make it pliable and be able to do this. And then once you get your skirt on how you'd like it, you'll just put another tie. You can put it right there underneath the arms, or a little lower about where a belt might be. It's just up to you how you want to tie those on there. So once you get them wrapped on how you want, you'll just take your string and secure down your dress. And then this one may be a little tricky just because there are a lot of corn husks. You may have to pull it tight and hold it tight while you tie the knot, because those corn husks will try to push out, bounce out. Spread out. That's over. And so that gives you a completed corn husk doll. Now, what you can do if you want them to stand up, you can try, if they won't stand up on the table, because sometimes they don't, you can take your scissors and sort of trim the bottom to give you an even, flat surface. And that should help them stand. And so you have a completed Cherokee Cornhusk doll. I was always told through the stories that it was a woman, and that most of our dolls are depicted as women with the dresses. Though I know in recent years, like I said, with contemporary artists, they've been doing a lot of different things with Cornhusk dolls. And so one thing you could do, I guess, is essentially you could turn it into a man, or just turn it into a doll that wears pants, regardless of gender. And so to do that, if you'd like, all you do is you cut up the middle of the dress, like so, up to about where you want. Once you get started cutting, you can probably just tear them, pull them as they'll tear. And then you can take ties and tie them, once you cut up the middle and kind of pull them apart, and tie them at either end. This will kind of give you like a pants and feet effect. So I just did it real quick, so mine's not the best, but you can tie them sort of like this. Again, you can trim them to try and help them stand. With these ones, I found if you cut the corn husks sort of at an angle towards the inside, they stand a little bit better that way. And there you have a Cherokee Cornhusk doll with pants. So thank you for joining us today. This is how you make Cornhusk dolls. I hope you've enjoyed the demonstration as well as a little bit of history. We hope to see you all again in the future. Thank you.